Alright, everybody, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. So, I finally beat The Last of Us Part 2, and I beat the game actually a couple days ago now. I think it's been like 4 or 5 days since I beat the game, but pretty much, I I just needed to take some time to think about how I really felt about this game before giving a review. Because honestly, when I first beat this game, I had no idea how to feel about it. I had very mixed feelings on the game, and I just didn't want to give you guys a review until I was certain how I felt. I even for a while was thinking about replaying it one more time before giving a review, because I felt like this is the type of game you might need to play more than once to really know how you feel about it. But I overall decided to just go off of how I'm feeling off of the first playthrough, and I might still play through the game again and kind of continue to give my thoughts and stuff on it later down the line. But overall, I want to go ahead and get my opinion about the game out there. So this is going to be my review for The Last of Us Part 2. I'm warning you now, this review is going to have spoilers. We are not holding anything back for this one, so if you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to get out of here now while you still have the chance, because we are going to talk about everything in this video. So pretty much for those of you who don't know, I am a massive Last of Us fan, alright? Last of Us Part 1 was one of my favorite games of all time. Currently, I always place it as my second favorite game of all time behind Witcher 3, and I've replayed Last of Us 1 multiple times, like at least six or seven times, I think. So yeah, I really love Last of Us 1, but I was still very concerned about Last of Us Part 2, especially after seeing the leaks and stuff. And I was pretty much worried about the game all the way up to release. A lot of people were trying to say, oh, the leaks are out of context and stuff like that. And, I wasn't really buying it. Those leaks looked pretty crazy to me. And, I was worried about the game. But I still said I'm going to go into this, because I'm such a big Last of Us fan, I'm going to go into this with an open mind and try my best to enjoy whatever I play. Now, I've got to say, once again, like I said earlier, I was very unsure how I felt about this game upon finishing it. Because one thing's for sure, I definitely did not hate it. I definitely did not hate this game. Let me just start by saying, people who are trying to make it seem like this game is bad or trash are definitely they're wilding just a little bit. They're kind of tripping a little bit. The game's not bad. All right, it really isn't a bad game. It actually is pretty good, and there are some things in it that I would consider to be revolutionary. However, the game is definitely, in my opinion, not a masterpiece, and this is mainly because of the story and some of the writing. I'm sure you guys heard this multiple times, but it's definitely not a masterpiece like a lot of people are trying to make it seem. At least not in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I personally would not put this in the same category as the first game. That's just me. That's just me. Some people would, and that's fine. But personally, I think those people are ignoring some massive flaws within the story of this game. So that's overall the basic rundown of how I feel about the game. But we're going to go into a little bit more detail here, and I'm just going to kind of give you guys my overall thoughts. But before I do, I've been thinking, and the whole scoring system is kind of, I don't know, a lot of people are moving away from it, and I kind of understand why. It's a little weird giving the games all these different scores when it's much easier to just tell people how you feel about them. But if I had to give The Last of Us Part 2 a score, I honestly would probably give it like a 8.5. And don't get me wrong, I guess you can kind of pass it off as a 9. And maybe even I can kind of somewhat understand why some people call it a masterpiece. For me, it just wasn't because of the story and writing. But for me personally, it's more like an 8.5 on a scale compared to other games. But that's still a really good score. Gaming nowadays, the scores are kind of weird, like I said, but that's a pretty good score. But we're going to get into why I'm giving it that score and what I think about the game. So let's start with a lot of the stuff that I liked, a lot of stuff that I thought was really good about the game, and just kind of go from there. So the first thing I want to talk about is the gameplay. The gameplay is definitely my favorite part of this game. I really enjoyed the gameplay in this. A lot of people, like I said, there's been a lot of people over the past couple years that have come out of the woodwork out of nowhere and made it seem like The Last of Us has bad gameplay. But in my opinion, man, the gameplay in Last of Us has always been great. It's always been really solid. It's not super complex like something like God of War or Batman Arkham Knight, but it's very simple, but it's built in such a complex way to where the gameplay itself is complex, even though the mechanics and stuff that form it are very simple. So yeah, I really enjoyed the gameplay in this game. Ellie's a lot smaller than Joel, so obviously the way she fights and moves and stuff like that is a little bit different, and I liked it. The new dodge mechanic was fun. It was a little clunky, to be honest with you, but for the most part, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty useful, and it can save your life in some instances, and it can create some really intense gameplay moments. I also love the fight or flight system that they have in this game, where you can exit and re-enter stealth on the fly. I use that so much throughout this game, and it was really fun. It was extremely fun playing through fights in this game, firefights and all the encounters and stuff, stealthing through an area and stuff like that. It was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot, and pretty much the hardest parts of this game are pretty much most of the areas they've already shown, like in the demos and E3 trailers and stuff like that. So yeah, just look out for those spots. But overall, yeah, I really love the gameplay in this game. And I do even want to take a second to mention the AI. The AI in this game for me is like next level. Like, this felt like next gen AI at certain points. The way the enemies checked around all the different corners, and how fast they reacted to you and spotted you and stuff like that. And for people wondering, I played with the AI set to Survivor, and then I had like resources and stuff set to moderate, so that I can still be finding plenty of supplies and resources throughout the world and stuff, so I could still kind of get a feel for all the weapons and things a little bit more on my first playthrough. I didn't really want to be in scrounging for every little bullet or whatever on the first playthrough, especially since there's no difficulty trophies this time around. I just went that route, and that was pretty fun. It resulted in some pretty fun playthrough for me. But yeah, that I really enjoyed the gameplay, the AI and stuff. Once again, on Survivor, I don't know about some other people. I don't know what other people were saying, but the AI on Survivor for me was outstanding. Absolutely the funnest way to play this game. I honestly can't see myself lowering the AI at all, because man, it was just so challenging and difficult, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed all of that. When it comes to the infected, they were really good. They were actually one of the things that surprised me the most in this game. They're a lot more aggressive, all of them. The clickers, like the first time I encountered clickers as Ellie at the beginning, You know, I actually was kind of afraid to approach them because they had this new thing where they actually roar before they make the clicking noise and stuff, and it made it sound like they were spotting me. So yeah, all the infected are a lot more terrifying. The runners are more aggressive and stuff like that. Stalkers are a lot harder to deal with, and they're actually kind of annoying. And they can really screw you over if there's other types of infected like runners or clickers around. The new samblers are pretty intense. When you put them in groups with other infected, they can be a real bother. However, I was kind of disappointed that they were so easy to kill. I honestly thought they were going to be a little bit harder to take down than they were. But, you know, I mean, I wasn't too bothered by it, but I just wish they were a little bit harder to kill. Then, of course, there was the Rat King. That was crazy. That was definitely that's probably the second best boss fight in the game. For some people, probably the first. But personally, I love the boss fight at the end, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. But yeah, pretty much that was a really nice surprise. We knew there was going to be a new infected going into it because they kind of teased that in like that last gameplay they showed. But yeah, I was excited I was excited on that part. It was definitely difficult on Survivor, but once again, very enjoyable. So moving on to the visuals. The visuals are obviously great. You know, they're not. I see some people saying there was a downgrade, and I do think there was a very slight downgrade, not a big one. To be honest, once again, like with the downgrades, a lot of these downgrades that people complain about now, like that people treat these downgrades now as if they're the same as the Watch Dogs downgrade that pretty much started the whole downgrade controversy this generation. But most of these downgrades aren't that bad. You know what I'm saying? Most of them are pretty much almost not noticeable, and I feel like that for The Last of Us Part 2. Like, there might be a slight downgrade from some of the earlier gameplay we saw, but it's not really anything noticeable or anything bothersome. The game still looks freaking amazing. So, yeah, no problems there. Now, moving on to the story and writing. Now, once again, like I said, I had a lot of problems with the story and writing, and we're going to get into that in the second half of this video. But I did enjoy certain parts of it. For instance, I felt like this was a very emotional story. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster, and I did like that about it. It made you feel something, which is something I wish more stories were capable of doing. But yeah, it was a good story. I really did enjoy it for what it was. I had a lot of fun playing through it, and it definitely had me screaming at the screen a few times and throughout it and everything. So yeah, it definitely did its job, and it definitely accomplished what it set out to do, whether it was to make you hate certain moments or love others. It definitely hit a lot of the chords in that regard. However, it did stumble in some places, but right now let's just keep focusing on the positive for a few more seconds here. There were some character parallels, like for instance the parallels between Abby and Joel were well done. The parallels between, I don't know, I guess Ellie and Abby throughout certain parts of the game were also kind of well done and stuff like that. And just, you know, even at the end with my favorite parallel in the game was Abby and Lev being paralleled with kind of Joel and Ellie towards the end and stuff like that, and how that ended up playing out. I like that a lot too. But, and this is where we're going to start to get into some of the more negative parts of the review. So, you know, if you're one of the people out there that don't like to hear anything negative about The Last of Us Part 2, prepare to be triggered. So, yeah. But, And this is where my problems with the game really lie, and why I ultimately would not give this game the score of a masterpiece. I just personally feel this game has a few too many problems to be considered a masterpiece, in my opinion. Number one is pacing. The pacing in this game was definitely not the best. And how do I know that? There were literally parts of this game where it was starting to feel like a chore to play through them, which is one of the reasons it took me so long to finish it. Like, at first I thought I was just going to, say screw it and sit through this game when I got a chance to really sit down with it and just play straight through, but I couldn't do it. Like, there were parts of the game that just dragged on a little bit too long for me, in my opinion. Mostly, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, and a lot of y'all probably gonna see this coming, but most of these parts were the parts with Abby. I'm not gonna lie. Especially like the part where she's going to look for Owen. Like, man, I was just like, bro, why am I even like, bro, that part was dragging so much, and then you had to go on this whole little quest to the hospital. And like I said, there were good parts to these. Like, for instance, her meeting Lev and Yuri. I liked Lev and Yuri, but honestly, their story was a distraction from the main story here, man. It drew attention away from what the player really cared about. And don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it, but honestly, I could have done without it, or I just wish that it was kind of weaved in there in a better way, because even though what was there was good, while I was playing it, I was really just rushing through it to try and get back to the theater, to try and get back to that intense story moment where Abby corners Ellie in the theater. But they cut away from that for half of the freaking game to give you the other half of the game as Abby. And I just don't know. I wasn't a fan of how they decided to pace this. I wasn't a fan of how they placed Abby's stuff. I wish that they had almost kind of done more of a back and forth with Abby and Ellie if they were going to do it like this. And to be honest, like, another thing about Abby's storyline that I wasn't really feeling is a lot of it could have been a lot of it could have been used, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of it could have been used to build up a lot of her friends and a lot of her characters that Ellie was hunting down, but they didn't. Alright, you know what I'm saying? We could have spent more time with Jordan, or what's her name, Lee, or Manny, or someone, and we got to spend time with characters like Owen, Manny, and I forget the other chick's name, Mel. We got to spend a little bit of time with them, but not really a lot. You know what I'm saying? It almost feels like they should have just went ahead and spent the time that they spent building up Mel and Yuri and their story. It feels like they should have, man, just spent that extra time, developing some of the characters we already knew, or some of the characters that were involved directly in the story. That way, they should have done this in the first half of the game, in my opinion, too. That way, when Ellie goes to kill some of these characters, like when Manny gets shot by Tommy, or when Ellie kills Jordan, or some of the other people that were there when they killed Joel and stuff, these characters' deaths would have had more weight behind them. But most of these characters didn't have satisfying deaths. The only ones that were really satisfying were Nora, and then I guess, and Mel and who else is, they weren't really satisfying, encounter. Like Mel and Owens, like that one was just more like, holy crap, Ellie. But she didn't mean to do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't have a lot of oomph to what felt like, to what we thought was going to be a revenge story. you know, the revenge parts of it didn't have a ton of oomph to them. And matter of fact, there was only one part, once again, like I said, which was Nora, where I really felt like, yeah, this is what I was expecting from this game, where we were chasing her down. But, you know, other than that, the rest of them just felt kind of disappointing and flat. I mean, don't get me wrong, they seemed interesting, but we just didn't get enough with them, in my opinion. So, yeah, that was a little disappointing. Another thing that really was kind of starting to piss me off with this game was the dumb character decisions. Oh my god, the characters were making some really stupid decisions throughout this entire game, and I just could not ignore some of them. Obviously, the big one that a lot of people are talking about are Joel and Tommy taking a Sunday stroll into a house of armed strangers and giving out their names like it's a Christmas party or something. And I get that. That was really dumb. That was really out of character for Joel and Tommy, and you would have never caught them doing that in the first game. And I do feel people who felt some type of way about that. You know, they left their, I couldn't really tell if they left their guns in the other room, but I know this, I didn't see any guns on them. I didn't see Abby and her friends taking guns off of them or anything like that. So I don't know what happened there. Like, they didn't even put up a fight. They weren't suspicious at all. They were Joel was standing out in the middle of the room, you know, like he was expecting to get ambushed and stuff. Like, I mean, man, I don't know what to say on that one. I guess you can just put it down to, you know, boil it down to Joel be softening up a little bit with old age. But I'm just saying, that was the type of mistake he would have never made in the first game. Another mistake that I didn't like was Ellie leaving the map after she kills Mel. I understand it was a traumatic moment for her, but honestly, bro, like, you tell me Tommy or Jesse didn't decide to take a quick look around in that room before leaving? I mean, Abby could have still been there, but nobody checks around. Nobody notices this big map with your location marked on it on the ground. That was a really bad mistake. And you would think Ellie would notice that that was missing at some point and maybe would want to go back for it, or maybe know that they should be on their guard or whatever. But nah, man, they just completely that was dumb. All right, that was dumb. And that just didn't seem like the type of mistake these characters would be making after all the intelligent stuff we've seen them do from both the first game and this game. Alright. Another thing that was really annoying that I was like, bro, that makes zero freaking sense, was Dina being pregnant and refusing to let Jesse take her back home. Like, bro, why? Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, Dina was literally not helping anybody here. I'm sorry. After we got to the theater, she was useless the rest of the game. No offense. I mean, I guess she tried to help Ellie at the end with Abby. I guess Ellie's technically still alive because Abby took pity on them because she was pregnant and stuff. But, man, I don't know about that choice, man. Ellie could have kept on with the mission. They wouldn't have been caught lacking at the theater in the first place if Dina had just let Jesse take her home. But, you know, Jesse was like, she's not leaving without you. I was like, bro, that is so stupid. You know that you can't help. You know that you are being a burden on this mission that they're on. Ellie would have still had Tommy there in the city with her, so she wouldn't have been completely alone. So that was another dumb character decision and moment where it was just irritating. You would have thought they would have been like, nah, you're tripping, Dina, you gotta go. You can't even stand up for like half of this time. You gotta go. Like, But no, they decided not to do that. So that was really annoying. And last but not least, and this is the most irritating moment of what I would consider somewhat bad writing in this. But at the end, when freaking Tommy just kind of snaps on Ellie, that was for me, that was out of character for Tommy. Alright, Tommy didn't want Ellie to go in the first place. Tommy would be the type of guy to understand that Joel wouldn't want Ellie to risk her life doing this. And you would think he would care about that, being Joel's brother. Tommy also doesn't strike me as the type of guy, or at least from the first game, because you know the whole thing from the first game between him and Joel was that he wasn't okay with what they had to do to survive all the horrible stuff they had to do. So in my opinion, Tommy didn't strike me as the type of character that would get consumed by revenge like that, to the point where he would push Ellie, Joel's surrogate daughter, to go back out and risk her life and possibly get killed again. Alright, I'm sorry, but he just doesn't strike me as that type of character. So for me, that felt really out of character for him at the end. That might only be me, but I've seen a lot of other people kind of just brush it off. But for me, that felt super out of character for him, and I was really confused by that. But yeah, those are just some of the really bad and weird character choices that I saw in this that I did not enjoy and that I thought were definitely off. But obviously there's more stuff about the game that I did not enjoy. Also, before I move on to the end of this video, can we just acknowledge the fact that the supporting cast for this game was overall really weak? Like, I'm sorry, but none of these characters, and that includes Dina and Jesse, some people might disagree with me on this, but none of these characters felt as strong as characters like Riley or Bill or what were their names, Henry and Sam, Tess. None of them felt nearly as powerful as those characters, in my opinion. Maybe Abby was the only one that really kind of stood out, the only new character that stood out and was strong, was actually a strong character. And yes, I did like Abby, people. Alright, I did enjoy her character for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't really like her. I still disliked her for what she did to Joel and then later Jesse. And I thought the way, and once again, like I said, I thought the way that they did that transition, it could have been ordered differently to be a little less like, man, like I don't know if I like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, they could have ordered it in a way where it was a little bit more enjoyable for the player, but it was hard for me to really, you know, feel bad for Abby in any of these moments, instead of be like, yeah, now you know how it feels. Like, even when she came back and found Owen and Mel dead, I'm sorry, I didn't feel bad for her. I really didn't feel bad for her, people. So, yeah, I feel like they should have done that in a different order. I feel like they shouldn't have done it the way they did. And obviously there's them killing Joel off very early, one of the strongest characters in the game. Even though he's dead for most of it, every time Joel is on screen, he steals the show. He really does. But, you know, they kill him in the beginning. A lot of people were upset about this. I personally wasn't as bothered. I understood what they were doing and stuff like that. But I do see some people's points with saying that they wasted Joel and that he could have been such a bigger part of the game and stuff like that. I kind of see where they're coming from, but at the same time, I don't really have a massive problem with how they decide to do all that. That part of the game didn't really bother me, you know, with Joel's death and stuff like that. Like, I understood it. You know, this is the world of The Last of Us. It's brutal. Joel has done a lot of bad stuff. What he did at the hospital was really bad. So, you know, he had a death coming. You know what I'm saying? and they needed to kill him early on to, you know, make the whole full circle thing happen towards the end. But yeah, I see where some people are coming from with disliking that, but the problem here is, you know, the supporting cast just wasn't really strong, and that's mostly because none of them got enough screen time. Like I was saying earlier, Abby's friends kind of felt a little disappointing. I was expecting them to be a much bigger part of the game, but they just weren't. And then of course there's Dina and Jesse, and they were good characters, don't get me wrong. I did enjoy their characters. However, they weren't in the game a lot, if I'm being honest. You know, past like a few hours, I mean, I think Dina, after, like I said, after she got to the theater, she pretty much doesn't really go on the rest of the adventure with you for the most part. So after, like, what is that, like 6 or 7 hours in, she's pretty much not barely there. And then Jesse, you know, he's barely in it. I think altogether he accumulates like 2 hours or 3 of screen time, so he's barely in the game. So a lot of them just didn't feel as strong as I would have liked them to have been. I feel like because of this, a lot of the deaths felt very dry and rough, and, you know, kind of way sooner than you would have expected them to be in order for them to be more satisfying deaths. Like, almost none of the deaths are satisfying in this game, except, I mean, I guess Joel's was a really powerful one, but other than that, none of the other deaths were really all that potent or powerful. Maybe what you call her Nora's, but that's only because of the design leading up to her death and stuff and how they did that. But other than that, yeah, nothing else really felt potent in terms of characters, their development, and their deaths in the game. So yeah, and obviously Ellie and Abby were great, and Tommy was also, for the most part, good. I wish he was in it a little bit more too, but you know, he was good for the parts that he was there. Maria, she's barely in it, but, you know, a lot of people don't like her. But I felt where she was coming from. You know, she understood Joel, and what Joel pretty much wouldn't have wanted them to go on this adventure, and that pretty much it was just a bad idea to begin with. But, you know, yeah, I also understand where Ellie and everybody was coming from with going in the first place. So let's get down to the part of the game that really has people upset. That ending. Oh boy, that ending. So a lot of people are not feeling the ending of this game. A lot of people did not enjoy it. A lot of people thought that the ending was like, oh my god, super cringe. I can't believe they did this. This sucks. You know, a lot of people just weren't happy with the way the game ended. And I can see why they feel that way. I personally, though, love the ending of the game. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't love the end, like with Ellie walking off into the sunset and stuff. I mean, that was kind of meh. But, you know, everything leading up to that, you know, that entire final mission in Santa Barbara and stuff, and then the fight with Abby on the beach, her letting Abby go, the last moments between Ellie and Joel, their last words to each other, all of that stuff, and even up to Ellie not even being able to play the guitar at the end, and that being the cost of revenge and stuff. You know, that was all really great. You know, Ellie's worst dream coming true, her being all alone. I loved all of that. In my opinion, that was all really good. I enjoyed it. But honestly, I see why some people might feel like, I kind of didn't like that ending. And mainly that's because there wasn't a lot of build up to to Ellie letting Abby go. You know, there wasn't a lot of build up to it. It felt really abrupt, especially when you look at this entire adventure. And you know, you look at how hell-bent Ellie was on getting her revenge only for her to let Abby go in the end. I understand why a lot of people felt like it was all for nothing, but that's kind of the point of what they were going for, I think. You know, the point is that they wanted you to kind of understand that revenge isn't worth it, that, you know, it costs way too much and you don't really gain anything in return. So, yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It felt a little abrupt, and that's pretty much what they were going for. However, though, I guess you could make the argument that that doesn't really make sense because Ellie didn't even get the revenge. She chose to do the right thing and let Abby go and still got punished for it in the end. And I guess you can say she chose to let her go a little too late. She was way too hell-bent on it for too long. And because of that, she paid the consequences of that. But that's not really satisfying. And, you know, I kind of see where a lot of people are coming from with that. Even though I personally saw the bigger vision of what they were trying to do and trying to go for. And I liked it, you know. It was realistic. It was a complex ending. In my opinion, it's not nearly as good an ending as the first game. But it was still a good one. It was still decent, right? So yeah, overall, guys, that's how I feel about The Last of Us Part 2. Like, honestly, this video is so long. I honestly don't even know if this is going to be the final product. I might end up editing this video or redoing it to make it a little bit shorter. But we'll see. I might just upload the whole thing because I love Last of Us, and Last of Us Part 2 is a really complex game that I had a lot to say about, so I honestly don't have a problem with the video being a little bit longer. So yeah, tell me what you guys think down below in the comment section. Don't forget to you know, go ahead and leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you want more Last of Us content, because I am going to be breaking some of this down a little bit more in detail in different videos and stuff. So make sure you hit the subscribe button for more content on the game and stuff. And obviously when Factions releases for this game, we are going to be on that heavy because I love Factions multiplayer from Last of Us Part 1. But yeah, like I said, my score for The Last of Us Part 2 is an 8.5. I did enjoy the game. It was a good game. However, in my opinion, it wasn't as good as the first game, and it's not a masterpiece. There were some serious flaws in the story and writing, in the finer details, in my opinion, and all of those eventually added up to kind of harm the overall interpretation I got of the story. So yeah, that's personally how I feel about Last of Us Part 2. Let me know how you guys feel, and thanks for watching, you guys. I will see you on the next one. ZFR out.